On today's episode of This Old DAW, we'll be talking about the best way to connect Windows via SCSI to your samplers. But first, an introduction. This DAW. So as a follow-up to the last video I made, which was basically covering SCSI and Mac, a lot of people have asked me, well, how do you get SCSI and Windows to play nicely? Well, depending on the vintage of Windows we're talking about, the older versions of Windows was a bit easier to get going than it is to get going on more modern 64-bit Windows. On this machine right here, we have both Windows XP and Windows 7 64-bit. And so I will take you on a walkthrough on what it's like to get it working on XP, and also show you how I have it running on Windows 7 64-bit. But first, let's take a tour of the rig. So this is the Windows XP machine that we'll be using for today's video. Case has basically been a million different things. This is the SCSI card that we're going to be adding in addition to the two that are already in there. The E8600, 4 gigs of RAM, GT710, and basically after the addition of this one, you'll have 3 SCSI cards, giving you the capability of running 3 separate, completely separate SCSI buses. So if you have any way of daisy chaining your samplers, you can imagine that you would have up to 21 different devices that you could put on these respective SCSI buses in this configuration. Big reason why I'm running the Core 2 Duo is it allowed me to find a motherboard with this many PCI slots with relative ease. So now that we have our XP machine ready to go, the EMU 1820 connected, the EMU and the Akai both turned on and connected, all we have left to do is to turn on this. So now we have successfully booted into Windows XP, and for whatever reason this case seems to like to ramp up really hard on startup. It has a fresh thermal paste coat, so I'm not sure what's going on with that, but it's something to diagnose another day. So as you first hook up the system with a SCSI 2SD installed, the machine will detect those SCSI devices. We just have to cancel out of these. So first step is we'll just jump right into recycle and start there. Skip that one. Look for some of these breaks here. So check this one out actually. So we're going to see what sampler that we have in memory right now. Right now it's the emulator 4. So just like this, we'll just, before we get there, one of the things you want to double check is in your sampler settings when you're setting up your samplers. So let's say we're going to set the Akai S3200, for example. Go to add. And one of the important things you want to make sure with Recycle when you have your Windows machine built is you want to make sure that you have the SCSI capabilities enabled after your ASPI has been installed, after it's been successfully detected in Device Manager. What a successful SCSI install will look like is when you have the option that clearly says you have the SCSI option and the MIDI option. So we're going to add the S3200XL. And that is located on this one right here. Click verify, and it has successfully verified. We'll click OK. And so now we have the S3200XL in the system. Transmit. And we will transmit this file to the S3200. And just like that, everything's been transferred over to the Akai S3200. Now what's really cool about this setup here is I can simultaneously work with the EMU and the Akai in the same setup. So we'll go back to my emulator 4, and then we can transmit this over. And one thing I will notice is you kind of notice that the transfer rate to the EMU4 is a bit slower. Yeah, I'm not sure why the EMU4 is that much slower in sending and receiving, but for some reason it is. Now we can just quickly verify the contents of our samplers. You can see this here. Check the S3200. And now you can see that the sample transfer was successful to both machines, which is great. Change my display settings real quick here. Try a different setting here. Let's scrap that. Let's go back to this view real quick. So SoundFort H8 also supported SCSI transfers, mostly specifically with the EMU line of machines. Sampler, configure. We have the EMU4. Selected as an EMU4. So we're going to set the sample 2, see if we can successfully grab this one. So something I've learned about this is that SoundForge was very peculiar about like where on the SCSI bus it resides. So I have gotten this working before, but I've, in my experience, have had a bit more of a hit and miss with SoundForge, so I'll have to revisit this another time. Waveburner or Wavelab works really well on this. Sampling configurations. EMU force detected. Receive sample number 2. And so just like that, we've been able to pull sample number 2 from the EMU into Wavelab. So for the Akai, we go back to here, and we configure for, create an S3200XL preset, settings, add the S3200XL this way. Okay, so now we've created a preset for Wavelab to have it configured the way we have it right now with the S3200. Sampling, receive. So we can, with the S3200, just look at the sample memory directly like this, which is really nice. So let's say we're going to pull in sample number 1 just like we did with the EMU. So just click receive. And just like that, we have that sample. Let's grab the second one while we're here. So now we've been able to successfully pull samples back from the Akai and the EMU in the same program. And this kind of allows you to edit, modify, make changes, and even do interoperational transfer between samplers, which is, if you ask me, is pretty cool. A lot of possibilities and capabilities with that. Just gonna cancel all these. See. And last but not least, we'll show you Akai Mesa. Sampler, find sampler, it's successfully found it. And it looks like I'm going to need to replace my batteries for these at some point. So right here we have full Akai functionality here. We can save, in some cases, maybe even drag and drop files. So, if I was to be asked which version of Mesa I prefer, I 100% prefer Mesa on Windows, because if you convert your Akai CD libraries to Mesa format, this is the Mesa format it recognizes. And so for simplicity, I've converted most of my commonly used sample banks to Mesa PC format. And so this makes it really simple to manage your libraries, to preview things, to find samples, to organize your samples, and just kind of be able to send things back and forth with relative ease. Now, some people have asked me, well, I'm trying to get this working on Windows 7. How would I do that? So we're just gonna switch boot states real quick. Boot settings. So now we'll be booting into Windows 7. This one is booting off of a old spinning disk drive, so it's definitely not as fast as it could be. Windows XP was running off the solid state drive I have in this machine, and obviously a 9-day difference in response time and everything else. Yeah, this is such an old and cranky installation of Windows 7. At some point, maybe I'll refresh it and change it, but for the application I use this for, Windows XP really kind of fills the bill for me at most times. Also keeping this for demonstrational purposes. Boy, I just realized how slow a spinning disk drive can be with Windows. This is dreadful. Jeez. I'm not sure why we're getting this message here. Should have just booted into Mesa, but it has to run DPS setup first somehow. Okay, MIDI plug's been registered. It's gonna make a liar out of me, isn't it? Let's see if recycle's working at least. Okay, so the SCSI capability is working. What I might have to do is I might have to run Mesa into administrative mode. Because we can receive from it. For some reason our screen resolution's really jank right now. Oh, no wonder. That's a bit more legible. All right. Okay, sound's working. Let me see. Grab the next sample. So big thing we want to double check when we run recycle, check the compatibility mode, which I'm running in Windows XP Service Pack 3. And also I run this as an administrator. That way, in the older versions, you didn't have to worry about it in administrative mode. It really just worked. And I guess later on they decided, oh, you should be an admin if you want to use SCSI capability. So then one of the things you want to keep in mind when you're running this on Windows 7 64-bit. So now that I'm curious about what's going on here, let's see if we can open the file location. This too is set the way it's supposed to. Let's try this again. So sometimes what happens is if you've changed your last SCSI configuration, it basically requires you to reinstall Mesa at this point. In summary of today's episode, we can see that yes, we can get things working on Windows 7 64-bit, but keeping it stable. And if you make changes, some programs can get a little finicky about that. And so that's kind of one of the lessons learned, is probably make a whole nother video just on Windows 7 64-bit configuration, because I basically have to, for the most part, start all over again now that I've made all these changes. So thank you once again for joining us today on this old DAW. Until next time, we'll see you then.